So what is faith? How does our faith grow? How can we know our faith is growing? Are there stages or signposts of a growing faith? What is mature faith? What does that even mean? We'll address these questions in this video. So often when I ask people to describe a mature faith, they say reading your Bible and praying daily. And they may add being engaged in a community of faith and witnessing to your faith with good works. And those are all important parts of faith development. But you and I all know people who do all the things and still are, kind of mean or self-absorbed. They're not really like Jesus. People can do all the things and not be transformed into the likeness of Christ. So James Fowler writes in his book, Stages of Faith, that there's a big difference between religion, beliefs, and faith. So beliefs are a set of propositions, a system of concepts that have been developed over time to describe our experience of God, of the transcendent. But beliefs are not the same as faith. Beliefs are the things we know about or think we know about our experience of God, but we don't have faith in those concepts. Religion is the accumulation of traditions and narratives that incorporate our beliefs. Faith is the deeper and more personal response to our religious traditions and beliefs. Faith is a relationship of trust in and loyalty to God or whatever we consider transcendent in other faith traditions. Religion, beliefs, and faith are reciprocal. They work together, but they are not the same. And we get in trouble when we think that faith development is about thinking all the right thoughts, believing all the right things, and doing all the right things. What's intriguing that whenever we look at faith development models, they all have movement in common. Movement from an externalized faith dependent on one's community of faith, so on one's religious community, to an internalized, integrated faith. Our faith development is progressive, but it is not linear. You might want to consider faith development as kind of like a nautilus shell in which a person goes through stages of faith in a circular fashion, occasionally returning to places, wounds which God would heal again, places that we need to revisit our understanding of who God is, and then moving forward. This progression is one from merely knowing all the right stuff, getting our beliefs straight, and doing all the right things, our praxis, to being God's child and cooperating with God in the service of God's kingdom. Faith development has movement. It has a direction towards maturity. It also has stages. Now, in his book, Stages of Faith, James Fowler lists a number of these stages, and they have very long and exceedingly difficult names to remember. If you're interested in reading more, read Stages of Faith. It is a rather dense read. His other book, which is a little easier to read, is Becoming Adult, Becoming Christian, and it covers those stages of faith as a summary. Westerhoff, he also has a model of faith development in his book, Will Our Children Have Faith? And Hagberg and Gulick have some stages of faith, which they write about in The Critical Journey, and I will reference all of these models. Almost every model begins with faith being experienced before it is even named. Fowler calls this undifferentiated faith. But I love the way Walter Wangerin in Orpheum Passages writes about the beginnings of faith. Who can say when, in a child, the dance with God begins? No one. And the beginning, specifically, cannot be remembered because in the beginning there are no words for it. The language to name, contain, and to explain the experience comes afterward. The dance, then, the relationship with God, faithing, begins in a mist. Now, as the child develops language, he or she is given names for what they have been experiencing, this experience of God. So fragments of stories and images all kind of coalesce into names for these experiences of God. What's so interesting is that there's research by World Vision on children from no religion and other religions besides Christianity that suggests that children see the world and wonder about God all the time. And when they are given words to explain their experience of God, then they catch faith. Westerhoff says faith is more caught than taught, and it's inspired by a faith community. So children may hear about Jesus blessing children, but what sticks is when their faith community blesses them with love and a sense of belonging. So at this point, Fowler calls this intuitive, projective faith, and Westerhoff calls it experienced faith. So of course, the child or an adult who first enters a faith community experiences faith and then will start to affiliate with the community of faith. Westerhoff calls this affiliative faith, and faith becomes what we believe. What the community affirms, I affirm. What the community judges, I judge. And what inspires action in my community of faith will inspire action in me. And the faith stories of the community are critical in faith development at this stage. Fowler calls this the mythic literal stage, where stories are being incorporated into our understanding of faith. But as you know, with children, they will take stories of faith very literally. Hagberg and Gulick write generally about adult faith formation, but they have this affiliative stage of faith in their model as well. They divide it into the knowing and doing stages. It's when adults are awakened to faith and then must grow in their knowledge of faith. They go to every class offered at church to learn about this faith and what this community affirms. And then they head into the doing or productive stage, doing all the right things, serving on the committees, going on the mission trip. That's the knowing and doing stages of faith in Hagberg and Gulick's model. And often adults kind of land there and sort of circle there, stay there, maybe even get stuck there. Fowler calls this stage the synthetic conventional stage, meaning they're based entirely on our community's beliefs. We don't veer from what our community believes. Now, in order to grow in our faith, to gain a mature faith, our faith must become internalized and less reliant on the authority of others. At some point in our journey of faith, we need to take the burden of responsibility for our beliefs on ourselves. And in almost every model of faith development, there is tension at this stage. Doubts, questions, criticism of the belief system is actually needed for the person to locate the authority of their faith internally. It's a time of searching, a time of questioning, a time of doubt. And in case you haven't noticed, this stage comes not before faith has been awakened, but after. And after it's been developed for quite a long time, it's how our faith becomes internalized and integrated. Hagberg and Gulick call this stage the journey inward, and it ends at the wall. Fowler calls this stage the individuative, reflective stage of faith. I told you that those names were going to be difficult to remember. Westerhoff calls it searching faith. This is a time of reckoning, and it's often a time of suffering. St. John of the Cross wrote about the dark night of the soul. But it's not the stage of losing one's faith. It's instead a stage where we're repatterning our understanding of faith to include mystery and ambiguity. Life isn't black and white. There are no easy answers to life. And it's a scary time for people of faith who, along with those who know them and love them, think that they might be losing their faith. But we can assure them, we can assure ourselves that this is normative to the journey of faith. This is not often a stage we discuss in the evangelical church, and it's why I wrote my doctoral dissertation on it. For those who walk through the wall, allow God to develop their faith, strengthen them internally. They have an internalized and integrated faith. Westhoff calls this stage of faith an owned faith. Fowler calls it a conjunctive faith, and Hagberg and Gulick call it the journey outward, leading to a life of love. So this is what a mature faith looks like. It's a faith that has gone through the wall, has endured suffering, the suffering of the dark night of the soul, and it is able to tolerate mystery in life. It's able to respond to life's ups and downs with a dynamic faith. People with a mature faith hold their convictions deeply, but are also willing to acknowledge that there's no easy answers to life. This mature faith understands that there's a benevolent God and that life is held in God's benevolent plan, no matter what storms are raging around us. Struggles in our life are reframed and engaged in light of God's great love. Those people who are walking with a mature faith have a sort of ease to them. We all know who they are. You can tell that they've been through life and they have come out more compassionate, more full of grace for themselves and for others. They love well, and they travel light. God bless you, and may you be transformed into the likeness of Christ.